Tonight, the mass rape trial that rocked France. Prosecutors say Gisele Pelicot was drugged, then raped repeatedly by her husband and 50 other men. Tomorrow, judges deliver their verdict. Her husband, a firefighter, a journalist, a lorry driver, a nurse. The youngest man was 27, the eldest 75. One of their lawyers outlined his client's defense.
From the beginning, he was told this was a scenario for swingers, a couple with a fantasy. He was light years away from realizing he was participating in a rape.
The evidence sparked nationwide protests and a debate over consent. Tonight, we'll recount how the case first came to light. Also coming up, from jihadist to his country's most powerful man. But what does the rebel leader, who now calls himself Ahmed al-Shara, really want for Syria? Plus, Ukraine's president admits his military is not strong enough to retake territory seized by Russia 10 years ago. And from Sudan to Gaza to Syria, how art and architecture is being looted and destroyed during war. That's all coming up on The World with me, Gillian Joseph. Good evening. We begin tonight with the trial that many hope will change France forever. Week after week, a court in Avignon has heard detailed and horrific evidence of how a retired electrician and estate agent came to be described by his own family as the worst sexual predator in French history. Over 9 years, Gisele Pelicot was drugged with sleeping tablets and anti-anxiety medication, which her husband crushed and put into her food. Without her knowledge, dozens of men were invited into her bedroom to rape her while she was unconscious. Up to 70 of them from her village and the surrounding area were filmed in the act. 50 of them are on trial. Most have denied rape. Gisele's defiance in waiving her anonymity and the brutality of the attacks have led to national protests and calls for a change in laws around consent. So how could this have gone on for so long? And after tomorrow's verdict, will anything change? Our Europe correspondent, Siobhan Robbins, has our first report.
This is the moment one of France's worst sex offenders is caught. Dominique Pelicot's been spotted by a security guard filming up women's skirts. But this upskirting video would lead French police to 20,000 more indecent images. And the discovery that for almost a decade, Dominique had drugged and raped his wife and invited strangers to allegedly rape her as well.
He's extremely dangerous because he's intelligent and he's calculating. Mazan is possibly just a drop in the ocean of what Dominique Pelicot has done.
This was Dominique Pelicot's victim, the mother of his children, his wife of 50 years, Gisele. Almost 50 other men are on trial accused of raping or sexually assaulting her. Most of it happened here, in the pretty Provençal village of Mazan, where the Pelicots lived. The man Gisele called the perfect husband, in fact, a perverted predator, leading scores of strangers to their home to allegedly rape her.
What Dominique Pelicot did was beyond betrayal. He planned his crimes meticulously. He asked some of the men to meet him in this car park, and he told them not to wear fragrance, not to smoke, so they didn't leave any scent on Gisele's body. He'd then walk them down the road to the house where she lay sedated.
The court heard Dominique crushed sleep-inducing drugs into Gisele's food. He filmed men having sex with his motionless wife. Most of the other defendants deny rape. Around 30 men filmed by Pelicot still haven't been identified. This lawyer is defending 30-year-old Charlie A., who's accused of raping Gisele 6 times.
From the beginning, he was told this was a scenario for swingers, a couple with a fantasy. He was light years away from realising he was participating in a rape.
Unconscious and powerless when she was attacked, Gisele consciously waived her right to anonymity. Her bravery's inspired millions. Women across the country and beyond say France is sick.
She speaks for all the women, I think, and she takes her fights for her life, and it became like a story for all the young girls that one day will have to fight for her rights.
Dominique faces the rest of his life in jail. Gisele says her life has been destroyed, and the horror of what happened to her will haunt France long after the verdicts are delivered.
Well, I've been speaking to Siobhan, who's in Avignon, about how disturbing the evidence has been.
I think it's extremely shocking. This has been a really harrowing case, and the fact that Gisele Pelicot was so brave in waiving her anonymity means that many of those details have been discussed in public. And you heard in my report some of the details about the planning that Dominique Pelicot put into the crimes that he's admitted, but 20,000 indecent images found on USB sticks and devices belonging to him, and he'd catalogued them meticulously. It's almost like he had this obsession with pornography, and in some of the videos that he filmed, he directs them from behind the scenes, and you can hear him in some of those videos. And that meticulous planning as well that I mentioned about making sure that the men, when they came to the house, weren't wearing fragrance, that they hadn't smoked, so that they left no scent on Gisele's body. And also asking one man, we know of at least, to warm his hands on the radiator so that he didn't wake her. So that level of planning is so disturbing, particularly when you put it against the fact that Gisele says she had absolutely no awareness that this was happening. She believed that he was the perfect husband up until the moment she was pulled into a police room and shown some of these images.
And Siobhan, do you think that this has been a turning point in terms of how France deals with sexual violence and issues of consent?
I think the main important point in this trial is that it's boosted questions about rape and drugging and rape, and that is what Gisele Pelicot has been so keen to happen. She said, if anything comes from this trial, I want other rape victims to be able to look at my case and say, if Mrs. Pelicot can do this, I can do this. And certainly when I've been out on those marches calling for better support for women and to stop sexual violence, what's really interesting about it is that you get a huge range of people. This isn't just young women who maybe were involved in the Me Too movement. This is older women as well saying enough is enough. And those calls have really pushed the conversations to the very top of government. They're now talking about whether consent should be added to the French rape law, because at the moment consent isn't part of it, and that's why this trial has been quite tricky to prosecute. So it really has amplified those calls, and obviously once this trial is over, then we'll see what lasting impact it's had. But I think the really other important thing to remember is the fact that whatever happens in court tomorrow, whatever verdicts and sentences are handed down, this isn't over. At least 30 men who were filmed by Dominique Pelicot are still free. They are walking around. They are the husbands, the brothers, the fathers that walk among us, and people do not know who they are and whether they will ever be brought to justice.
Siobhan, thank you. As we've been hearing, the verdicts in the Pelicot trial are expected tomorrow morning. We'll have live coverage here on Sky News from 8:30 a.m. 5 days after Cyclone Chido swept through the French territory of Mayotte, supplies of vital aid have been arriving as hunger and disease pose a new threat. President Macron will visit the Indian Ocean archipelago tomorrow, which was hit by the worst storm in nearly a century, devastating many communities. Sky's Ashish Joshi reports from the island of Réunion, from where rescue and aid efforts are now being coordinated.
Sumu is helping as much as she can. This aid has been collected for the victims of Cyclone Chido, and she knows better than most how desperately it's needed. That's because Sumu's own parents have been left homeless, without food and water, in Mayotte. Her sister and 6 children are still missing.
I spoke to my mom Friday before the cyclone and to my sisters too, but after that I don't have some news since the cyclone.
You must be really worried about them.
Yes, of course, I'm too worried because it is really difficult to don't have some news after a disaster like that. So we're just staying here and waiting for news, but...
Sumu has since heard from her neighbors that they'd seen her parents and they'd survived. But there's no way of sending money, and she doesn't know what else she can do.
I hope that some people will help them because they are humans and they face the same thing, but I don't know. And I'm more worried about my father because he's alone, so I don't know if he has food or water or anything. We are just here and we're waiting, so...
You just wait for news.
Exactly.
Chido barreled through Mayotte with such destructive force that even now the island is still without power.
But
Ali is trying to contact his father. He managed to speak to his mother briefly yesterday. But for 3 days he had no news about Mum Tamrat and Dad Ali Hassan. Yesterday was the first time you spoke to them since the cyclone.
yes,
You must have been crazy with worry for 3 days.
I was worried, but I have some news, but not directly with her. But the neighbors called to my sister and tell her that my mom was fine. So I was worried, but it was soft.
A relief to hear from them. And your father? Suddenly, while Ali's talking to me, his phone rings.
Ah, my mom called me.
Take the call.
Hello? أنا كنت قلت ما الكسبة. My dad.
It's okay? Your dad? First time you've
Hello?
spoken to him?
Hello? Ode baba.
Ali's dad describes the complete destruction of their island.
He said that everything is you have to where everything is damaged.
Everything, he says, will need to be rebuilt.
There are no electricity, no health, no electricity.
We've been here for a couple of hours, and witnessing the response from the local community is really quite something. These donations haven't stopped coming. But what people like Sumu and Ali really want is to know that their loved ones back in Mayotte are safe and that they'll get help to face what can only be described as an incredibly difficult and uncertain future. For now, there's nothing else Sumu can do. She'll continue to search for her sister and hope that her parents don't have to suffer much longer. Ashish Joshi, Sky News, Reunion Island.
Well, earlier I spoke to Senator Salama Ramia, who's in Mayotte, where there's a curfew now in place overnight.
Things are not better today because so we still have no food. Water, we don't have water anymore. We still don't have water. The lights have came back, but not in all houses, in only some houses. And the communication is still difficult. There's some food who have come today by plane, but when they arrived in like our town, it was only one big truck, one truck just for this town, and so we didn't have not really many things for people. I mean, like we gave for one family, we were giving them 2 bottles of water, just one tea. I mean, it was really nothing for the people. So we're still waiting for survivors. We're still waiting.
So some aid has got through. You're saying one van at least with some supplies, but it doesn't sound as if it's enough.
It's we have been explained, because I have called the government today to understand how come still today, this is the 3 day after the cyclone, and I had the explanation is that the big fly have left France to come here, but the problem is the airport's still damaged. So they went to another island, which is 2 hours from Mayotte, and from there they will be transferred to other flights, smallest one, to come to Mayotte. But we have to wait. So I've been told maybe in 2 days we will have more food. So today it was just something to resist until these 2 days coming. Yeah.
We have heard reports of some people saying that they feel abandoned, that they feel that enough isn't being done to help them in their desperate situation. Do you identify with that sentiment?
Yes, we have that sentiment, because we see on pictures, we heard that there is many help coming, but in reality they're not here. Even maybe they'll be here in 2 or 3 days, but the hunger is today. It's today that we need to drink, we need water, we need to eat. So yes, people, they felt abandoned, and the fact that there's no communication. People alone in their house, they don't know what's going on, and they don't see anybody. They don't see those people who are coming to help us.
Is there a lot of fear around? Because the last time you were speaking also of looting, particularly without power, without constant power, and you mentioned there people alone in their homes waiting and not knowing when help's coming or what is around the corner.
It's still like that. Yeah, people are still they're wondering what's going on. When are we going to be helped? And what have added to that is the violence. So now the violence in some houses are started. There are people who have been robbed, who have been violence done. So people now they are really scared, and that's why the government, since it started yesterday, after 10 at night, we are not allowed to go out. So now because is that to help the people anyway, now after 10 in the evening, nobody must be outside.
Are you encouraged by the fact that President Macron will be visiting tomorrow, we're told?
Oh yes, that's very, very important for Mayotte, for people to see the president. It will comfort that, show to the Mayotte that the president is there. But I hope, and I heard that I hope that he will come with more things, like more food and help, and people to come and help. But for me, it's a big sign.
Senator, thank you very much for speaking to us. Senator Salama Ramia joining us from Mayotte there. You are watching The World with me, Gillian Joseph. Still to come. President Zelensky in talks with European partners as he looks for security guarantees for Ukraine for today and for tomorrow.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry. It is an anti-woman agenda.
Sky News, get the full story.
first.
Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Can you beat Donald Trump, Governor? President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way.
Free, wherever you get your news.
Excited.
I've had severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her.
Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. Ukraine's president has been very honest of late about the prospect of peace and of reclaiming territory seized by Russia. First, Volodymyr Zelensky suggested to our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, that he could agree to a ceasefire deal in order to end what he called the hot phase of the war. And today he went even further, admitting that his forces didn't have the strength to retake territory annexed by Moscow in 2014, and appealing to Europe for their continued support.
It's really very important that to use these 2 days in Brussels to meet with all our partners and to have the same, what is very important, not divided, the same joint position of Europe. How to secure Ukraine, how to strengthen us, our people, citizens, civilians, and of course, to do stronger our army, which is very important.
And our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons joins me now from Brussels. And Adam, President Zelensky, they're going even further than ever before, edging towards desperation.
Yeah, a really interesting moment, I think, this potentially, because Volodymyr Zelensky has been here to Brussels a number of times. And sometimes, frankly, it's a case of going through the motions. He says the things that everyone knows he's going to say, and there are kind of calming, welcoming phrases, but nothing much happens. Right now, over in that road over there, the most private, exclusive road in Brussels, there is a meeting going on which could, and I emphasise could, be important, because that is the official residence, the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte. And in that residence is Zelensky and Rutte, other EU leaders. David Lammy is there from the UK. And what I'm told is that each of those leaders has only been able to bring one person with them. It is a small, intense exchange of thoughts, and it is a chance for them to share opinions. And this comes, as you said, just after Zelensky effectively admitted for the first time he would not be able to take back the territory that's been seized. That is effectively Donbass and Crimea. He's previously said NATO membership would stop this war. Well, he's not going to get that immediately, but there could be a path towards some kind of ceasefire, because plenty of these EU and NATO leaders want that to happen. They have long harboured the suspicion that really a deal is going to have to involve giving back land. But they also know something else important, which is they can't now relent on supplying arms and munitions to Ukraine, because when it does come to a negotiation with Vladimir Putin, and Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, is the guy who is today talking about negotiations, Ukraine will have to be in a position of strength. Now, I spoke to David Lammy just before he got in the car to come to this meeting, and I asked him about whether he thought we were on a road to peace, and what he was emphasising was that need to continue giving arms to Ukraine.
We meet today with the Secretary General of NATO and of course Zelensky and close European allies to discuss what further support we give to Zelensky, what further military support, what further finances are necessary to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position as we head in and through 2025.
I think there are a load of things, to be blunt, that are coming together. Right, number one, Mark Rutte, the new Secretary General of NATO, is an arch politician, a very successful Prime Minister of the Netherlands, won election after election. He knows that this isn't just about war, it's also about Zelensky being able to negotiate peace without disenfranchising his own people. That's point number two. Zelensky might be able to convince these people that, yeah, there's a deal to be done, but Ukrainians will find it very hard to accept giving up any land. And the third thing is, what does that deal look like? What is there that is acceptable to Zelensky and EU and NATO and Putin? It's going to be a hell of a difficult deal to achieve, but maybe we are an inch nearer it tonight.
Let us hope so. Adam, thank you very much for the moment. This is The World with me, Gillian Joseph. Next up, what does the rebel leader, who now calls himself Ahmed al-Shara, really want for Syria? We'll discuss that next.
we've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. Syria's rebel leader has promised an inclusive country and insisted there's no need for the West to panic. The leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is apparently mid-rebrand as he tries to cast himself as a reformed jihadist. So who is Ahmed al-Sharaa, better known by his nom de guerre, Abu Muhammad al-Jahlani? His journey as a jihadist began in Iraq in the early 2000s. He was linked to al-Qaeda through the Islamic State of Iraq, a precursor to ISIS. Al-Jahlani was sent to Syria in 2011 to establish al-Nusra Front, a faction tied to the Islamic State. Supposedly disagreeing with their violent tactics, he pledged his group to al-Qaeda in 2013. But in their first year, the group claimed nearly 600 attacks across Syria, including more than 40 suicide attacks. 3 years later, al-Jahlani also severed ties with al-Qaeda. He eventually rebranded the group as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, in 2017. Under al-Jahlani, HTS became the dominant force in Idlib, northwest Syria's largest rebel stronghold. Secure there, he made a serious push to transform his image. He established a civilian front, the Syrian Salvation Government, to promote stability in the region. But critics compare his strong authoritarian rule in Idlib to Assad's. It was from there that forces launched the 28th of November toppling of Assad's regime. So how believable is this latest transformation? I'm joined now by Aaron Wieselen, a terrorism expert and senior fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, who's an expert on HTS. Welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining us. An expert on Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and therefore an expert on Abu Muhammad al-Jahlani. I wonder if, first of all, can talk about his rebrand. Why the change of name and what does that tell us about his aims and objectives?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him and the group pivot a number of times going back to the beginning of the Syrian uprising. The way I describe it best is they essentially went from global jihad to a local regime. So even if they haven't been associated with, say, al-Qaeda now for 8 years or so, they still have ruled northwest Syria as an authoritarian government.
So who is Jahlani?
Well, some say that he's Machiavellian. Others say he might be a chameleon. I think that there's a lot of debate, and there's a lot of things, even those that have followed this closely, don't even know the answer to at this point, because this is totally unprecedented in many respects. And so far, while there have been a lot of talks of this inclusiveness, those involved in the caretaker government, as they call it, are still the key leaders that have been a part of his organization and civilian government going back the last 7 years, and not anybody else.
And how genuine would you say his rebrand is? I mean, he's been a violent Islamist in the past, affiliated to al-Qaeda, to ISIS. How certain can the people of Syria be that he has changed and he is who he says he is now?
Well, I think it's genuine to say that he's no longer related to ISIS or al-Qaeda. Since then, he's taken out all of the Islamic State cells that have been in the territory that he's helped control. And then when al-Qaeda tried to create a new branch in Syria in 2018, by June 2020, he dismantled that group. So that's legitimate. The greater question is more how they rule the future of Syria, because in the past, it's only been a male and elite-led operation. You haven't seen women involved in the government or minorities.
And the people of Syria, we saw them out on the streets celebrating the fall of Assad. But how sure can they be that their future is safe in the hands of HTS?
I think it's a question that many people still have. I don't think we can be sure one way or the other at this point. I think many people have a lot of hope and are creating a honeymoon phase in many respects. And yet it could also just be a continuation of what we've already seen in northwest Syria the last 7 years.
Now, we know that across the world internationally, HTS is branded as a proscribed terrorist organisation, countries like the United States of America and the United Kingdom. How concerned are HTS by that branding? Is it something that they will seek to change? Do they care?
Well, we saw Jalani himself actually calling for the U.S. to remove his group and him from the terrorism list back in 2020. Of course, that hasn't happened yet. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, at least from the U.S. perspective. It's more plausible that there will be easing of sanctions related to Syria as a country due to the Assad regime's rule. And therefore, they might not worry too much about the terrorism designation in the near term.
We know that the US is already worried about Syria potentially becoming a breeding ground for terrorists, and various groups are at play within the country. How correct are they in that assumption? I mean, what's your analysis in that respect? Is it likely that there are going to be very many different factions fighting for power?
I mean, I think the main threat right now is the potential for the Islamic State to reemerge. It's continued to do small-scale attacks the last 5 years since it lost territory. However, there continues to be 10,000 male ISIS members imprisoned in northeast Syria. So if the fighting continues between the different factions in the northeast that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that could create, a possibility that ISIS could try and break them out, which obviously would not be ideal for anybody in Syria or the region.
And what we've heard so far from Jalani, as you've alluded to, is that he's saying that all Syrians are safe under his rule, all factions, all minorities are going to be treated equally. We've seen thus far that he's encouraged people not to seek vengeance on those who perhaps were part of the previous regime and are still in Syria, that everybody should come together for the new Syria. Can he be believed?
Well, in the last 2 weeks, overall, things have been fine. We really haven't seen too much revenge. I mean, there have been some cases of vigilantism here or there, but overall, most people that I've talked to on the ground suggest that it's more or less the same as it had been prior to the fall of the regime. But it's also been, a very short amount of time. And they say that there's this transition until March 1st. So I think we need to continue to track what they're saying versus what the realities are on the ground and make sure that there isn't a difference.
Indeed. Aaron Zelen, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening on The World. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, to get a sense of what life under HTS could be like, our international correspondent Diana Magni travelled to Idlib province and sent us this report, which we'll bring to you in a short while. But in the meantime, let's speak to Khalid Al-Ismail, who is with me in the studio. A queer Syrian writer who's come in to give us his perspective on what life was like, because you left in 2012.
Yeah.
But give us an idea of what life was like for you in Syria, a society that strictly forbids homosexuality.
It's criminalized. It criminalized homosexuality. Article 520 in the Syrian constitution criminalize homosexuality, like where homosexual people can be jailed from 2 to 3 years. So the situation was always not not even, I would say, it has the least, for homosexual people, a lot of prejudice. So the law criminalized the homosexuality during Al-Assad time, but what supported actually the homosexual individuals there, the prejudice the people had against the regime. So when whatever the regime will do against the people, we believed in the community they will protect us. So that was what was used against homosexuality, and of course, enhance the traditional masculinity, enhance all the religion, the element religion, we know Islam and religions, are they have prejudice against homosexual people. So the regime really works so much to make to grow and raise the prejudice against homosexual
And in terms
individuals.
of day-to-day living for gay people and other people that are not what society or the law would consider the norm, what was it like?
Well, I wrote 2 books about the homosexual and queer life in a country like Syria. The first one, Salam Lik, which is in English, it came in this year. I talk so much about the homosexual life in Syria. I've talked about the underground revolution against the regime. It happened in the places where queer individuals used to meet, like baths or like cruising in parks and public places. We always believed in the community to protect us, where our biggest fear was the regime and its thugs and its men. They always use, for example, if you go to the police station in Syria, you don't find cases or reports like talking about this person or this guilty person is homosexual. They always change. They protect themselves, the regime. They change, for example, the case into something else, into another crime, because in case Human Rights Watch or the international community will investigate about queer life or all this oppression, they will not find any paper or document talking about that. So it was like really tense, and queer community, they had like. What I admired about the queer community in Syria, despite all this prejudice, all this fear, there was a great hope in 2011 that something will happen, because we believed always in the community, in the families, in the parents, the people around us, the friends who they were supporting the queer people, undercover, because it's a crime in the end.
Obviously, you'll be thrilled at the downfall of Assad. But what are your hopes or perhaps fears of the new regime, HTS?
Well, first of all, it's a new landscape, and change is possible, and we believe in the Syrian people. Syrians in general, we have problem to trust the people in power today. We've been abandoned and left alone since 2011. Refugees crisis, people lost their homes, their life, their dreams, all that, as you know, and economical sanctions in the countries. So people, I think Syrians trust, they have trust issues with people in power, but we trust each other. So we depend on people more than the HTS. HTS, they have dark history in the north of Syria with homosexual people. I don't know. I didn't live, in Idlib, for example, but I met many homosexual and queer individuals in the south of Turkey who fled the country because of that. We know they executed them, for example, in the north of Syria in 2013 and 14. That we know the history, but we look for a brighter future, because as Al-Assad is gone, so there is hope, there is opportunity to change. What we hope at the moment to stop criminalizing, homosexuality and deal with the people and with the communities. At least when homosexual person walks the street or let me say, come out to his family, he knows he's protected by law. This is very important, and I relate to this because I wasn't.
Khaled, thank you very much for sharing your story with us, and it's good to know that you do have hope for Syria in the future. Thank you very much for coming. It's good to speak to you.
Thanks.
Well, to get a sense of what life under HTS could be like, our international correspondent Dana Magne travelled to Idlib province and sent this report.
We're driving through the countryside south of Idlib, through the ruin of thousands upon thousands of shattered lives. This was a front line in 2019, long before the Islamist fighters of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham swept south from their Idlib stronghold and seized Damascus. Now it is rubble and minefields and abandoned Russian-made tanks. Not a soul in Kafr Nabil, the activist town once known as the heart of the revolution. But up on a hill where Assad's Iranian proxies had set up a base, we meet a couple trying to rebuild their home.
How are we going to be able to rebuild if we don't have enough to eat? What am I supposed to do? Look behind me. It's all ruins. Where do we even start? Look around. Even the trees are gone. What are we supposed to do?
The toll on their family from this war has been horrific. He spent 3 years in jail. They've had 30 relatives killed. Now their sons fight with HTS, and they believe in its leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, or Ahmad al-Sharaa, as he now wants to be known.
He's such a decent man with great manners, a man of religion, a man with morals. Everything about him is moral. If he takes over, the entire country will be fine.
We came to Idlib to find out what people who've lived under HTS and al-Sharaa think about his rule. Those who've always called this place their home, and the millions more internally displaced who've sought refuge in the one rebel holdout in Syria's northwest. One of Jalani, or Ahmad al-Sharaa's, big achievements up here in Idlib has been to stop the various factions from fighting one another and unite them under one authority. Now the question is, can he roll that model out across the country, and will he commit to the more moderate path that he's promising? Some reflexes may be hard to shift. We filmed him a few days ago telling a journalist to cover her head, a clip which had people asking just how secular a one-time Islamist could be. But he has renounced his al-Qaeda roots, and those we speak to up in Idlib say they don't believe he's an extremist.
He seems to be a normal guy. I don't think he's ISIS. None of his actions show that. He's just a guy like me. He's just a normal person like everyone.
But he takes over a broken, traumatized nation. We meet another family leaving the camps, returning home, but without their father. His wife knew he'd been sent to the infamous Sednaya prison, but she found out this week that he was dead.
I went blind from all the crying. They killed him after torturing him and starving him. Do you know those iron presses that they used? My son was only 1 year old when they took him away. He doesn't know anything about his father.
Her son tries to console her. He is the man of the household now. Dana Magne, Sky News, Idlib.
This is The World with me, Gillian Joseph. Next up, the other battle across the Middle East to preserve antiquities, many of which have been damaged or destroyed in recent conflicts.
They were prepared for protest, but not on this scale.
How difficult is this to police tonight?
Off the scale.
I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent.
The last smoke and steam rises into the sky above Blast Furnace 4.
Today is a day in history.
Sky News, get the full story first, free, wherever you get your news.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Katie Spencer and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent. When you think of Glastonbury, it's mud you want and music. They're going to cross to us live in a minute. Okay.
We always were capable of doing this.
Oh, they're wonderful children as an audience.
Who did that? Maverick here on the red carpet. I'm so excited. Hello. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
Nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
There's this illusion of power.
Are you feeling well?
I remember covering the Oscars and that now infamous moment, the Will Smith slap. You can tell from these crowds just how excited people are for the return of Pride.
These actors playing the lead roles were born long after the Sex Pistols broke up.
As a team, we've interviewed some of the biggest stars in the world.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Don't leave me!
Yeah, okay.
There's no easy goodies. There's no easy baddies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
The holidays just got merrier and brighter.
It's been everything you'd expect and hope for.
Feast your eyes on our favourite time of the year with gifts galore, magical moments, and holiday cheers.
Snappy and certain, right on the line!
Premier League festive fixtures. Premier League festive fixtures on USA.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. We've talked a lot on the programme about the human impact of war, but how does it affect a country's cultural identity? Have a look at this. Well, this is a 13th century building in Gaza, historically significant and close to the Strip's Great Omari Mosque. But look at the picture here. The building was largely destroyed in an Israeli attack in July this year. Lebanon's cultural heritage is also at threat from conflict. Its iconic Roman remains in Baalbek, which have stood for 2 millennia, have already been bombed by airstrikes. There's fresh concern that the unrest in Syria could threaten the ancient ruins in Palmyra, already ravaged by ISIS in 2015. Palmyra used to form one of the most important cultural centres in the world. And the civil war in Sudan has seen tens of thousands of artefacts looted from Sudan's National Museum, often regarded as one of the most important in Africa. Well, joining me now is architectural historian and director at the Barakat Trust, Saif El-Rashidi. Welcome to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. First question, really, that I have to pose is, what is the Barakat Trust and what is the work that you do?
Hi. So the Barakat Trust is a UK charity that was founded in 1987 to help preserve the heritage of the Islamic world and also to raise awareness about it. And we do that mainly by capacity building, by supporting training, conservation projects, scholarships, so a whole range of things to ensure that people on the ground have the ability to preserve their own heritage and also to understand why it's important.
And tell us about some of the works that you've completed in the past. I mean, some of the images that we have of the Gaza Bazaar, before and after, actually, but we can talk to that. Tell us about that project.
So the Gaza project actually is a project that we were approached to, and the Munir Al-Baz, the conservation architect, approached us in 2020 and said that it was a very important building. It's the gold market of the city of Gaza, and it was in poor condition. And we gave them the seed funds to do the first phase, which is to understand what needed to be done to document it, to improve the infrastructure because it was leaking. And with the money that we gave them, which was the first push, they managed to get subsequent funding from the Gerda Henkel Foundation. And as you see, the building was really in excellent condition. It became a center for local tourism. From the hinterland of Gaza, people were coming. It was a bustling place. Some shops that had shut down reopened. The shopkeepers contributed to the restoration, and it was really thriving and a model of how a historic building can be the hub of a community and bring people together to celebrate their common heritage and enjoy being in a historic building. Unfortunately, as you said and as you show, it was mainly destroyed in July this year, which is obviously, a sad thing. And I think it shows you that heritage can also be a symbol of community, and its destruction can also be the erasure of community identity and a sense of history, I think, of a place.
But how does it make you feel when you see the wonderful work that you've done destroyed again?
Well, I mean, it's very demoralizing, but I mean, I have to say that Munir Al-Baz, the architect who led the project, has already started documenting, bringing together archival photos, because he has the hope that once the war stops, he'll start and rebuild it again. So, I mean, it's a sad thing, but there's also hope. And I think that the fact that people on the ground whose conditions are terrible are still looking at the future and thinking we'll be able to do something about it is encouraging.
Saif El-Rashidi, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight about the work that you're doing. That is it for tonight. Tomorrow we'll focus on the verdict in that mass.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news. Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers. We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.